still not great. The way we defended both of the goals.
Another episode of the All Leeds TV podcast and match reaction from Brighton versus Leeds. Today I'm going to be your host because we've got Mike's missing for a few weeks. And we've got this guy called Oscar. You might know him, another All Leeds TV guy. So anyway, let's get into it. If you aren't already, subscribe, follow, like, comment, all that jazz. Whichever platform you watch us on, or listen to us audio only. Let's get into it. So Oscar, 3-0. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, mate, as we were saying off air, we said kind of before the game that I didn't really expect much from today. I thought maybe we could sneak a draw out of it, a 0-0 or a 1-1 or something like that. I never really saw us winning this game today. I thought it was a game that didn't really suit us in terms of what this team's about. And by having said that, I thought we'd be a lot more competitive than what we were. I don't think there was any spell in the game where I thought we were putting Brighton under any pressure. I don't think we had a shot on target. I don't think. I think it was 3 shots, none on target. We actually, had a decent possession in the game, but just did nothing with it. Just played totally into Brighton's hands, and we have a terrible record at Brighton. And this was probably as bad as a lot, to be honest, in terms of the defeats at Brighton. And in terms of team selection, we went with the same one as West Ham. I think in hindsight, that's a mistake. But I think Daniel Farke's hand is forced somewhat in certain areas where players aren't fully fit, or to be fair, other than Nonto, it was a fully available squad today. But the likes of Dan James, you can kind of tell, aren't ready to start games yet. Albeit, I do think he'll be the starting right winger, etc., etc. And obviously, got the the Tanaka and Stack sort of debate in terms of that third midfield spot, because the other two look pretty settled as starters week in, week out. So the frustration is that it just looks like a complete mess, to be honest. It looked like a continuation of the second half against West Ham, the game against Burnley. And yeah, it was worrying, mate. It was worrying. But at the end of the day, we have to remember we're in the Premier League. We will have days like this. Okay, you kind of expect it to be against the top 6 sides or teams that are maybe on a better run than what Brighton are on. But it is what's going to happen from time to time. I think Minter, wow, he really did cause us massive problems. And he's a good player. He's a really good player who could be, could easily make a step up, I think, from Brighton, to be fair. So it's a tough one. I think a couple of quality players really combined to cause us big, big problems today. And one who used to wear the Leeds shirt, who, plays a big part in the third goal. So that's it. I think there was a quality difference. I think in terms of our approach wasn't good enough. I think we just lost heart at 1-0, and that's not good enough either. There's a lot of things that weren't good enough, but there's other things where it's the nature of the Premier League as well. That's kind of my rambly kind of take on it.
Yeah, I mean, Bogle, you could tell he weren't on it today as well, and he usually is. He's really consistent, isn't he? But today he looked off it, and yeah, he touched on Minter there, and that's the type of player we could do on that right hand side. He was fantastic and it causes a lot of problems. But yeah, it looked a bit mismatched, didn't it? I know Farke gets a lot of the blame for, and I've seen online today a lot of the blame for today, but it looks mismatched in the substitutions he makes. But he hasn't got many options apart from what he's got, and we don't know the full story of who's ill, who's not, who's fully fit, who's not. But yeah, it's kind of difficult in that situation where you haven't got the players available to slot in. You haven't got many like-for-like players, should I say, have you?
Yeah, exactly. If Okafor's out, you've got no direct replacement for Okafor. Same with Ampadu, same with Joe Rodon, for example. There's no real direct replacement for quite a lot of players. Calvert-Lewin as well. I don't think we've got a direct replacement for Calvert-Lewin.
No, and then it becomes a mismatched side, doesn't it? Because you're losing bits. But yeah, for me, it was just there was no fight in that performance at all. It looked a bit lethargic, if that's a word.
Yeah, it did. It totally did, mate. It looked like we played midweek. To be honest, it looked like we played midweek. Yeah. And Brighton were the team that played midweek, against Arsenal in the cup, and I think they went quite strong in that game as well. So that's frustration. I think the energy levels weren't particularly great, and that's not something I think you can criticise this Leeds team for. I think every single game this season, other than maybe today and maybe Arsenal, we just looked totally sapped for energy. And I think a lot of that's to do with how Brighton, when they do have the ball, they keep it well. They do make you move quite a lot. In terms of Belieber in midfield, who I thought was excellent as well. I should have mentioned him as well as Minter. He's a really top midfielder. You're seeing sort of £100 million bids go in for him. And listen, I don't think any midfielder's worth £100 million, but in today's market, you can kind of see why Belieber is valued at that kind of level. And as much as Ampadu, our midfield's good. Don't get me wrong, our midfield is good enough for this level, but there's still levels, kind of thing. If that makes, without being disrespectful, there is still levels this Leeds team still needs to get to.
Yeah, it has to be
To be a
consistent.
regular Premier League team.
It has to be consistent though at that
Yeah.
level, doesn't it? Like for me, it's like we'll perform at that level for maybe 2 or 3 games, and then it drops, and then but you've got to be on it 90 minutes every game at that level to be a top Premier League player, and I think that's where we need a lot of work. Yeah, it's just a weird game. I'd argue that, I don't know if you agree, but I'd argue that performance today was worse than the Arsenal performance.
Yeah, way worse, way worse. I totally agree. I think the Arsenal game, the mitigating factor was that Okafor had only just walked into the building. Calvert-Lewin, I don't think, was signed at that point. But he certainly didn't play in that game. I think it was Pereira who started up front, and Mecha came on. The midfield was a bit messy as well. Longstaff had only just come in, wasn't really established in midfield. I think he only came on in that game. I think Gruev started in that game. Yeah, there's a lot of injuries in that one. So the frustration for me is that other than maybe James Ramsden, and obviously whoever you prepared between Tanaka and Stack as that third midfielder, it was pretty close to our full strength team. I genuinely do think today. So that's where I'm a bit worried. When I'm thinking, oh, now that's a bit worrying that as much as Brighton are a good Premier League team who will probably finish in the top 10 this season, or being a lot closer to the top 10 than they are the relegation zone, you can't be getting outplayed like that.
No.
And to be honest, mate, as well, another factor is the away form as a theme hasn't been good this season. We've had a couple of decent performances. I think Fulham was a decent performance, albeit I don't think it was as good as maybe what we thought at the time. I think Fulham, they're not a bad Premier League team, but they're not as good as maybe what we thought they were when we played them. We're seeing that they're not too far off our level in the league. Obviously, Wolves was a good win, professional win, but again, Wolves, at the time we thought cracking win. It's still a good win, don't get me wrong. Any away win in the Premier League is a good win, but Wolves were a terrible Premier League team this season, and we're obviously a good win in that one. But you take those two out of it, you look at all the others, the horrendous performances. Arsenal, horrendous. Burnley, let's be honest, it probably wasn't a 2-0 game. It was probably a lot more close than what a 2-0 suggested. We had chances in the game, but it was still not great. The way we defended both of the goals. And today, horrendous performance. Sheffield Wednesday in the Cup, horrendous performance. It's got to be looked at and think, the home form has been very, very good this season. Of course, you can see with our league position, it's a home form that's kind of helping us a lot this season. I think with the way we press as well, I think that energy from the crowd at Ellen Road, the raucous atmosphere, I think helps this team in terms of from a pressing point of view. But I think away from home, I don't know, maybe that's a little factor. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I do think that's a bit of a factor when it comes to the pressing, the energy off the ball. I think we find it a lot easier at home than away from home, and that really shouldn't be the case. By the way, I'm not defending it. I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to find reasons because that is not acceptable. We can't continue on this sort of away form that we're on, where we're not scoring, we like conceding. It's pretty horrendous combination, really. I think outside the Wolves game, we haven't scored, have we, in any of the other away games?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No, I don't think we have. And then you look at it, we've conceded at least two, a lot of goals as well in those games. 3-0, 5-0, 2-0. That is a worry to me, the away form. And obviously, Forest in the next week coming up. Obviously, Forest aren't going to go down. Let's be honest. Forest are not going to go down under Sean Dyche with that quality of squad. But we still need to be going there whilst we're in a bit of a mess and putting on the performance at the very least. I'm not saying we need to go there and win because it's not realistic. But we've got to go in there and put in a better performance than this. We have to. The last couple of away games have been shocking from us.
Yeah, we've got that. Yeah, I agree. We've got to at least. This is what I'm saying. I know we're in the Premier League, and I understand where we are, and the we're not going to win every game like we do in the Championship, more or less. It's going to be really tough, but at least give us something to cling on to, like some hope that we're fighting in games. But like today, and we just looked like we'd given up, like before even a ball was kicked, because we weren't like that. Like you're talking about pressing today, I didn't see much pressing.
Yeah, there was none. And I think it was just a case of Brighton just, whenever we did try and press, it was just simple passing to Belieber. But, he'd turn and then have oceans of space to play into. It wasn't coordinated at all. Some of the midfield was wanting to press. Some of the front three was wanting to press. The back four wasn't wanting to play high up the pitch because of Minter and Welbeck and Gomez as well on the left hand side. Rutter in that half space. He were very uncoordinated today. And the concern to me is that the home form, the performances themselves, not just the results. I don't think we played badly at home in any game this season. I think we're being at the very least decent in every single home game. And in every single away game, apart from Wolves, maybe Fulham at a push, we're being not just bad or average, we're being terrible. We've looked like the worst team in the league away from home this season.
Yeah, because we talk about forwards and the lack of creativity that we've got in the team, but lately, like today, we're a big example of like defensive errors. Just simple defense. Yeah. It was shocking. I mean, if you go back to all 3 goals, could have been avoided.
Yeah.
And that's a worry for me that it's like these goals that could have been avoided, and they're just bypassing us like and we're supposed to have strengthened in defence, and today it wasn't apparent.
No, it wasn't, and it's a strange thing, isn't it? I think it's just the nature of the Premier League. I'm not going to suddenly say that Goodmanson, Bogle, Rodon are not good Premier League defenders. I think over the season they've shown it, and listen, those players have had bad games this season as well. But I think over the season they've been good, but there will be days like this as well. But you can't have days where all 3 are off it, and Yacobiol had a pretty poor game today as well. If anything, I actually thought Paris made a couple of saves where he kind of kept us in it, really. Well, not when I say kept us in it, stopped it being like 4 or 5 kind of territory. Yeah. He made an excellent save at the end. But Bogle especially, I think that's possibly Bogle's worst game in the league shirt, and that says a lot to how well he's played for Leeds that would go that far. Yeah. Other than maybe his debut against Portsmouth or that, I think it's a tough one between the two really but that won't continue at Bogle. I've seen enough of Jayden Bogle to say that I think a lot of these players will kick on. The issue is, as a team combination, it's just not working away from home. I don't think we're particularly bad defensively. I don't think we're particularly bad in midfield. I think no open four can cause problems in the creative sense. It's not working as a unit away from home at all. When we're trying to play out the back, against teams that it's very different playing out the back at home to what it is away from home. When you're playing out the back away from home, you got the crowd on top of you. Teams tend to play more on the front foot at home because there's more emphasis on them, especially someone like a Brighton, for example. They're not going to sit off you at home against a team that's fighting against relegation, let's be honest. So we've got to get used to that, the fact that teams, when we do try and play it out, are going to try and press us very, very aggressively because they know they can force errors. And the more we play these games away from home, goals come from these situations, the more they're going to try and do it against us. We've got to find something there. Whether that's a case of going a little bit more direct, in terms of Paris just kicking it straight onto Calvert-Lewin and cutting out the middleman to an extent, that is an option. I think Calvert-Lewin in the air. I'm not saying go on to full-on Sean Dyche, Sam Allardyce football, but maybe away from home.
Mix it up a little bit.
Have a variety, Craig.
Yeah.
Have a variety to what we're doing. In terms of if it's not working the first 10 minutes, try and play out the back. Don't let it develop into the first 20 minutes and then into the first half an hour, and then you find yourself 1-0 down, chasing the game, and the team's well on top of you at that point. Maybe try something different. Even if it's just 10 minutes, just kicking the ball along to Calvert-Lewin and trying to win the second ball, and just get yourself up the pitch and away from danger. Why not mix it up a little bit? And I'm not saying we just need to be a team that sits in for 90 minutes, because A, I don't think that suits us. B, I don't think that's the Premier League. But the biggest thing in the Premier League this season is you're seeing set pieces are a big factor now, long throws. Teams in general are going more direct, in terms of they are trying to limit the playing out the back and playing this midfield, sometimes going straight into the forward and, pressing rather than, trying to play out the back in that kind of sense. And I just don't think there's enough variety to our game away from home. And it's a total opposite at home. So it's a weird one, really, in terms of we look like 2 different teams, and that is a concern to me. And it's quite a large sample size now. You've got 5 games of each, home and away, and they look like 2 different teams.
Yeah, because we have done that where we do mix that variety of going long, and with Paris' lack of, shall we say, his distribution, but his distribution's not great from short distance, and we saw that, which put us into trouble a few times today. And one of the goals came from that pressure, but. When you're not that great at doing something like that, like do the alternative, which is kick it long, because it works. Calvert-Lewin wins that.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, Calvert-Lewin wins that header, but we need the wingers then close to Calvert-Lewin to pick up the loose ball or pick up the second ball. But yeah, I'd rather see Perry just boot it long and get rid of it, because we saw, when you talk about that, like going long and direct, it's a thing that I noticed when, like from the Bielsa days, when we controlled, or when we were just playing, passing, flowing football, the way to counteract his tactic was going long. We struggled against teams
Yeah,
that went long.
second balls and that lot.
Yeah. And I think that when we play teams like Brighton like that, especially, I mean, I don't want to use the weather as an excuse today, but you can't try passing around against a
It's a
pressing team.
factor.
Yeah.
It's definitely a factor.
You've got to go long sometimes, and yeah, and I think I do agree. I think that's what we ought to have done today.
And it's one of those. It doesn't have to be. We have to go long every single goal kick.
Yeah,
Or we have to play
mix
out
it
the
up.
back. Just mix. When if your first 10, 15 minutes of the game, you're thinking, we're putting ourselves into a lot of unnecessary trouble here.
Yeah,
Let's just go long to Calvert-Lewin. We do it at home.
yeah,
We do mix it
yeah.
up at
That's it.
home.
Yeah, we do
Against
it at home. So
Bournemouth,
just play the same way. Play the same way as we do at home,
but
away
away
from
from
home.
home, feels like we're just trying to control it from 90 minutes away from home. Listen, it works in the Championship. Away from home, going to places like, say, Birmingham away or Coventry away. You could do that. You could just play, 60, 70% possession and just, tire the opposition out, or just keep the ball, control the game, and just, be on top. But
But
it
we
just isn't
were,
happening in the league.
but we were the best side in the Championship,
Of
weren't we?
course, we yeah.
So we can afford to do that. Whereas in the Premier League, you can't afford to try that way. You've got to do alternative ways of playing, because you're not good enough to play as good as we think we are. We're not good enough to play against teams like Brighton. At their game, we can't go toe to toe with them at their ground.
No, not in terms of the profiles they've got. When you've got people like Rutter, if you're going to leave Rutter 1v1 and Minter 1v1, that's the thing where the biggest difference I saw, we talk more about us going forward now in terms of us against Brighton. The biggest thing I saw between us and Brighton today, and it did kind of sum up a lot to me, the gap at this moment in time. We talk about the gap to the top six, but for me, the top six is largely irrelevant, really. That's not our fight at this moment in time. But if you look at the teams beyond sort of the relegation candidates, so your Brightons, your Bournemouths, teams like that. I'm trying to think who else is in that kind of sort of category at the minute. Crystal Palace, teams like that. The biggest difference they have is they don't just have one sort of game-changing forward. Like for me, our game-changing forward is no Roquefort. Whether you think he's of that level or not, he is clearly the player who can make something happen out of nothing.
He's the only one. I mean, you could argue Dan James. You could argue a fit Dan James that could change
Even Dan
a game.
James, I love Dan James, but I think he needs the players around him to give him the ball. I think
he's not got the creativity that Okafor's got. Okafor's an individual that can change a game.
He can take the ball on the half turn and run it 2 or 3 players and take 2 or 3 players out of the game and it make things happen. And to be honest with you, Craig, I think we said the same thing last season where the criticism at times last season, as much as we were the best team in the league by a distance, there was games where teams were sitting against us and we struggled to break it down because we maybe lacked that player who could take the ball on the half turn and make things happen. And Solomon did it for a period, Ramazani did it for a period, but we never really had someone for the whole season who was just taking the game by the scruff of the neck on their own in that kind of sense. And Okafor can do it. Whether he can do it consistently, of course, still remains to be seen. But I do love Okafor. I think people know that by now. I'm a massive Okafor fan. But the thing for me with Brighton was that their equivalent to Okafor is effectively Minter. I think Minter's probably more not suited to the league. That's the wrong way of putting it. More experienced in the league now. He's obviously had an extra year in the league. Probably a little bit more consistent with and mature with his end products. Minter, I'd say. And if you stop Minter, you've then got Rutter into the equation. You've then got Gomez into the equation, who's an incredible goal-scoring player, by the way. I think he's on to 8 for the season, I think now, Gomez in all competitions. So you've got Rutter as well, who we all know what Rutter can do with the ball. We saw it with the 3rd goal. So you stop one, and that's where, for me, when we try and play expansively against teams like that, where you're effectively leaving yourself 1v1, defensively, it's a risk. And if you're trying to play out the back as well, you think about it. Okay, if Biol tries to pass the ball to Tanaka, which happened a couple of times, and Tanaka loses it, or the pass doesn't get there, or Biol gets dispossessed, you then all of a sudden you're all out of position. You've then got Minter running at you. You've got Russell running at you. You got Welbeck, who's a very experienced Premier League striker, who, as much as yes, he maybe wasn't the top 6 level striker that he was going to be, but to be fair, a very consistent striker at this level. And Gomez, who's on sort of 8 or 9 goals for the season already. There's a lot of quality in that Brighton team. They obviously got Belieber as well, supplying the passes, and that is where we've still got a lot to learn, as a Leeds team, in terms of. And
Yeah,
it's going to be the same with Forest next week. Forest, you've got Gibbs White, you've got Hudson Odoi, you've got Dan Ndoye, you've got a selection of strikers that could play: Chris Woods, Igor Jesus, Callum Wendo. There's a lot of good players in that Forest team. Elliot Anderson in midfield. This season, mate, for me, and I think probably most games other than maybe Burnley, West Ham, Wolves, we'll look at the team sheets, our team sheet, and the opposition's team sheet and think, oh, there's a mismatch there, there's a mismatch there, there's a mismatch there. So as much as I appreciate the way we're trying to play away from home, I think the biggest thing for us is if we just try and do the same thing as Brighton, we're going to get beat,
yeah. I mean,
realistically. And it's exactly as you said, mate. The quality in most games will tell. So we've got to try it a bit different. If it is going a bit more direct, if it's playing more on the counter against these teams, again, as I say this, when you say go direct, it then becomes a perception that you're saying the team just needs to sit in and play Sam Allardyce football. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that have a bit of a variety to what we're trying to do.
yeah. Like I always say this. This is the difference. Like you've touched on, that you take Okafor out of our team, there is nothing. There's like
We don't score goals.
no, but if you double, like if you, all you have to do is get him out of the game. All you have to do is mark him out of the game. Like you say with Brighton, you take Minter out of the game, you've got Rutter. You take Rutter out of the game, you've got Minter, and you've got the other side.
This is with that Matoma as well, by the way.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
with
yeah,
that
yeah.
Matoma in the team and the
But
bench.
this is the level in the Premier League, the differences between our team and the other one. But one concerning thing for me is we've spent money this summer on more physicality, or that was the approach, more physicality, height and to be a bit more physical in games. But again, today I didn't see that. These players that we brought in to do that, I didn't see it from them. So it's, can they be that physical presence or not, or
I
consistently at
think
least?
there's two things I say to that. I think at home it's worked well, in terms of the physicality. I think it's won us a lot of games in terms of Longstaff in midfield, Rodon. Obviously, we already had Rodon. That's probably a bad example, but Calvert-Lewin up top, Okafor's sort of driving runs, etc., etc. It's worked well at home because we can feed it into the atmosphere. It's a lead for me. This Leeds team is what I'd call a textbook Leeds team at home in terms of the way it plays. It's not. Listen, it's not the Revy Leeds team or the Wilco Leeds team or the O'Leary Leeds team. I'm not saying that. It's not got the technical quality of the top end Leeds team. But in terms of the intent it plays with, the style of play, the type of players that we're signing, the profiles, it suits a Leeds team that's trying to. A Leeds team that's the underdog this season. It feels like the perfect underdog team at home. But away from home, the issue is it's all well and good having physicality, but if a team's not playing a physical game against you, Brighton play out the back. Brighton move the ball around. They don't tend to go long too much. So if a team isn't forced to go long, if they're just able to play out the back and through a press, you haven't got any physicality. If the ball's moving a lot faster than you are, it doesn't matter. You can just barge a player off the ball, or you can win a header, or you can win a 50-50. If the ball's just zipping around the pitch, which is the speed Brighton move the ball at is crazy, it's a problem and the thing. But I think the best example is our approach today versus our approach against Bournemouth. Against Bournemouth, we adapted to the game perfectly. There was a spell in that Bournemouth game, I don't know if you remember, where Ampadu must have given the. I love Ampadu, by the way. I love Amps, but he must have given the ball away about 4 times in 10 minutes, kind of thing. Yeah, I think Carl Darlow kicks it out of play twice, kind of thing. And in that spell of the game, I think it was 1-1 at that point. Just for half time, this was. We then totally changed our approach in the second half. We then started to go a little bit longer. We didn't just sort of try and press forward. We sat in more of a mid block, in terms to block off that midfield and took a few risks with Semenyo, etc., etc. But we changed our approach in that second half. Today, we just didn't do that. I think the issue was Brighton scored early as well. That's always a factor at this level. Always a factor. Especially if you're a struggling team, it doesn't have a lot of sources of goals. If we can see first in the game, I do worry for us. Albeit we have come back in a couple of games this season, but I think over the course of the season, I think we will struggle a lot when we concede early. So we have got to, even if it's a case of just first 20, 25 minutes, just be competitive for that first 20, 25 minutes. Old fashioned phrase there, classic Sunday League phrase. And the right to play is what I'd say. In certain spells. I think today there was a naivety to our approach, and to be honest, mate, the top and bottom of it is today. I think we got away with 3-0. I honestly think it was probably a 5-0 kind of game. I think Brighton were that much better than us today.
It could have been a lot. It could have been a lot worse. I mean, we did have periods of the game, but only small periods, maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes of
Yeah,
of
but we
like
didn't make anything happen though.
yeah, exactly.
That's the issue.
It looked like we were coming back into it for a little period of time. I thought this is where we can, if we step this up now, this is Leeds are coming back to play. But then it just dropped off again because Brighton just ran through us. And shall we get on some play ratings then, mate? And
Of course, mate. Of course, this is not going to be pretty. This is not going to be pretty.
This is not going to be pretty. Yeah, some individual performances. So we'll start with Perry as always with goalkeeper.
Oh, this is a tough one because shot stopping wise, from what I can think of the 3 goals, I can't think of anywhere where he has to do better, kind of thing. I think his shot stopping was okay on the day, but his distribution was terrible. Oh, I don't know. You've got a maximum of 5, haven't you? Really, 5, I think.
I'd probably agree with you on that. I mean,
Yeah,
Fotmob rated him 6.9. I think that's for that save that he pulled off.
for the saves. He did make a few.
He pulled off a really good save. Like I think it was in the second half from a deflection.
I think it was a 3-0 as well. That save. It was a great save.
Yeah, but his distribution.
I actually think Paris shot stopping and actual, in terms of traditional goalkeeping, if you like, in terms of with his hands. I think last 2 games, I think he's been fine. I think he's actually, he's done nothing wrong. I think he has probably been better than Darlow since he's come in. It's just the distribution factor, and it was actually said there's a difference between being good playing the ball long and playing the ball short. In terms of a fantastic 100-meter sprinter is not necessarily a good long distance runner in that kind of sense, and vice versa. And for me, trying to play the ball short, albeit it's easier passes, we're asking him to play. It's about when you're trying to play out the ball at the back, away from home, against top quality attack. You got if you look at Paris on the ball, you're looking and you're thinking, right, you've got Minter there, you've got Russell in front of you there, you've got Gomez there, you've got Belieber ahead of them, Welbeck, just in front. If you give the ball away, you're going to, at the very least, have a shot to save or face something. At this level, the efficiency is crazy. So you've got that level. I think for me, a lot of it's about temperament and technical quality. I think with Paris, I just don't think he's good enough to play the ball out the back in that kind of situation. I just think, for me, but you ask him to do the other side of it, the tougher stuff, in terms of playing the ball long, is a great asset to have. Why can't we play on the counter? Why can't we have that factor of if Paris has the ball in his hands, the opposition's unorganised, why can't Paris just launch the ball to Noah Okafor or Dan James when he's back in? We should be.
He should be playing to his strengths. He should be playing to his strengths, shouldn't you? Rather
exactly. Well, I think that's the case with the set pieces and distribution. I think it's the 2 biggest things. This season we're seeing teams are not afraid to go more direct. I don't want to be a broken record on that, but you're seeing the top teams do it as well. We have so much height in this team. We have so much physicality. I think Longstaff's delivery is decent. I think it's pretty underrated. We've scored a couple of goals from set pieces, but we're either great on set pieces or terrible on set pieces. And we have to be more consistent. We have to have that consistent threat. It's not about scoring from every set piece. It's just having that constant threat of giving the opposition, something to think about in set pieces. And distribution, you've got the long passing of Paris. You've got to win the headers, to win the flick-ons and play that way. And going long from a goal kick doesn't mean you're a long ball team. You can go long from a goal kick and then win the second ball and then play. There's nothing wrong with that. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that at all.
You go back 15, 20 years, goalkeepers always kicked it long.
Yeah, the best teams, Arsenal, used to.
It was just a thing that goalkeepers did.
You never saw David Seaman play out of the back. You never saw Peter Schmeichel play out of the back or Buffon play out of the back.
No, that's what I mean.
There's nothing wrong with that.
We should play to his strengths because he does seem to overhit it. I think when he's playing it short, he puts too much power on it. So he is
an emotional player, Paris, and I'm not saying that as a negative thing, but I think it's a negative thing where you do need a bit of composure to play out the back. if you're panicking playing out the back, the opposition can smell that from a mile
Yeah,
off, kind of thing. So yeah, I think 5 out of 10. It's
yeah. I'll go.
insured.
Yeah. Let's go. We'll start on the left hand side, so we'll go with Goodmanson.
Um, I absolutely love him as well, but possibly his worst game in the league yet. I think it has to be surely. I'll go with 4. I'll go with 4. Could go lower, to be fair. I think he really struggled against Minter today, and I think a lot of players will struggle against Minter. Don't read it as I think Goodmanson's not good enough or anything like that. I just think this was a game where the Premier League quality winger had the fullback today on that side of the
Yeah,
pitch.
yeah, yeah. He struggled to get into the game, didn't he? I didn't think he did too bad. I mean, I'm not going to go as negative as 4 for that, but I mean, my
I'm
base
happy to go
rating.
higher, to be fair. I'm
Well,
happy to go higher.
well, my base rating starts at 6, so you either stick at that. 6 is like you come on, you start at 6, so you either do really bad or you do better than that. I think I'd probably stick Goodmanson at maybe a 6, but I go like a lower end 6. Like
Oof, I was
it
going
was
to say that's a
starting.
generous 6.
Yeah, because I think that he did. Out of all the team, I think there's not a handful of players, but like 2 or 3 that tried, and I think he tried, but
Oh
he
yeah,
but
didn't give up or anything. It was just a
he
very difficult.
just a
Minter's a
difficult
very
game
difficult player to stop.
for him. So I'd just go with my base 6. Like he didn't do nothing too wrong, but nothing major either. So
Fair enough, fair enough. I mean, 5's probably, I'd say, probably about fair, but I think my base thing is I'm going quite low on a few players, but I'm happy to go 4, 5, 6.
yeah. Oh, go on then. We'll go for Biol next.
Tough. Uh, 5, 5.
5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll go 5.5. I don't think he. Again, I don't think he did.
I did think he was better than Goodmanson personally.
I just thought. I thought. The thing is for me in the middle, I think they switch off too often. When the balls are coming in the middle of the centre backs. But yeah, 5.5 for me. But he did win some good headers as well towards the end. So Rodon.
Yeah, about the same, and maybe a little bit better than Biol. I'll still probably go 5 though. I don't think it was notably better. I'd go 5 out of 10.
Is 5 your
Rodon.
base rating then?
No, to be fair, 6 would tend to be, but I think when we were that bad, that bad today, I think we've got to drop it probably to a 5 as a
Yeah.
base today, I'd say.
Well, if I give Biol 5.5, I've got to give Rodon a 6 because I think Rodon
Fair
again.
enough.
I think he tried again. He ran into trouble a couple of times. He tried to push us up the pitch. I like this from Rodon this season, where he's trying to get his higher up.
I think he's possibly been our best player this season, Rodon. I think.
One of. I'd say one of. Bogle, nah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Bogle, at least as bad as Goodmanson, probably worse actually. Seeing as we went higher on Goodmanson than I was initially planning, I'd go 4 out of 10 for Bogle. I think he probably was the worst of the back 4 today, and a lot of it's from that third goal. He just has to do better. That is really, really poor at the Premier League level. Conceding a goal like that. When you made so many mistakes in the goal. Yeah, I'd say 4. To be honest, I think it was a really tough one for Bogle today.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 5 today, 5.5, because he struggled a lot. I know it's only I'm not going to pull him down too much because it's just a one-off performance, I believe,
Yeah, exactly.
from Bogle. But there were a couple of opportunities where it were out of character. Like we got into their penalty area, and then he just tried to chop the defender and to get around him instead of just crossing the ball, like just whip it across.
Overthinking it.
First time, yeah. He a bit lax in those situations, but yeah, a 5 for him. What about Captain Ampadu?
Yeah, tough. I'd say 5. I'd say nothing notably good, nothing notably bad, but again, we just didn't have the midfield, so I think you've got to at least take a mark off for that.
A few wayward passes as well today.
Yeah, probably trying a bit too hard, in terms of trying to force the play a bit too much. Yeah, I'd say 5. I'd say.
Yeah. Well, I'll give him a 6, my base 6. Like I said, nothing too major, nothing
I think
too.
you'll be a 1 rated higher than everything on this.
Yeah, well, like I said,
we've got a similar.
my
Yeah,
base is 6. And Longstaff,
Longstaff came off fairly early, didn't he?
I was surprised at that because I thought Longstaff
Yeah,
was one of the
well,
brighter
maybe
ones.
just gonna have a look what minute he came off. I feel like it was early he came off.
About 60 minutes.
But anyway, Longstaff, I'd say 5 as well. Not too dissimilar to Ampadu, really. Probably actually Longstaff's worst game for us. Yeah, 60 minutes he came off at
Yeah, about 60
Longstaff,
minutes. Yeah.
which very, pretty surprised at that. But I'd say 5.
Yeah, I was gonna give him just a bit higher than a 6 because but a 6, but a bit higher of it, the higher end of it, because I thought he was one of the brighter, apart from Okafor, I thought he was one of the brighter ones that, again, trying to do stuff. He was nicking the ball. You could see his experience. He wasn't having a great game, but you could see the experience he's got in
Yeah,
the Premier League.
because I think there's going to be times this season where we have going to have to dig in situations, and I think that having that Premier League know-how, it's a a very overused phrase. I use it quite a lot. But I think you did see signs of it from Longstaff today, especially at 1-0 where we're still in the game. You saw a couple of little bits and pieces. So maybe I could rank it up to a 5.5, but I struggle to give anyone other than Okafor, no spoilers here, a 6, to be honest, today. I really
Yeah,
would.
well, I mean, like I say, my base rating is just a 6 anyway. But I think with Longstaff, I want to give him a bit of credit. It's just that I think the players around him are not his quality, if that makes sense. If you had Longstaff and another Longstaff at the side of him,
Yeah,
it
that's
would
fair.
look a lot better.
But Newcastle's a great example, in terms of Longstaff was seen as like the least talented in that midfield. And that sort of tells you a lot about the level of the Premier League. The fact that Longstaff's looked so good in our midfield, but could not get anywhere near the starting 11 at Newcastle last season, albeit he did the season before. But again, he wasn't really a standout at Newcastle from a traditional sense in terms of like, wow, he's a really good player compared to the rest of the midfield, and sort of tells you the difference in levels. But I do agree. I think if you add players with more consistency around him, which I personally think Stack and Tanaka can be as that third midfielder. But I think they both need to really develop to the level. But I think they've got the talent to do that. But I think
Yeah,
Longstaff probably does need. There's a lot of games this season where I think Longstaff has at times been on his own in that midfield.
yeah.
With respect to other
That's what I'm saying.
players.
I think
I think
like
Scotland's a good example of that. For example, Bournemouth to an extent. There's pretty much a bit of a one man midfield at times in the game. That's not to be disrespectful at the other players because they are trying. I'm not questioning that for 1 minute. But sometimes the game does pass them by for sort of not the whole game, but just like 10, 20 minutes where it can just pass them by a little bit. That
it's
doesn't
just
feel
that
like
speed
the
of
case.
thought. It's just that speed
Yeah,
of
yeah.
thought, isn't it? It's that second, that half a second too long on the ball, and whereas like Longstaff's a bit better at that. So
Well, that's it. I
yeah,
mean, not everything Longstaff tries comes off, but you can see the
no,
thought behind it. You can see what
yeah,
he's trying to do.
yeah,
Sometimes he might make a tactical foul or something, or push up the pitch in terms of press or something like that. And you see what he's trying. You can see there's an intelligent football. For me, Longstaff, he feels. I think he'll be a coach kind of thing. I'm going to call it now. I think he will be a manager when he's hopefully not in quite a distant future. I'd like to think. So I think pretty sure Longstaff's younger than me actually, but I can see being a coach. He's one of those players I look at and think, you see certain players
yeah,
and
yeah,
think
yeah,
he looks like a coach on the pitch. It feels
yeah.
like the case of Longstaff. He's worked under a lot of different managers, a lot of top managers in his time. Yeah, I can definitely. He feels like a coach on the pitch. To coin another popular phrase, but he does feel like that to me.
He's like the reliable player into that you.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
So that move on to I think Tanaka is the other starter in it.
Yeah, another one that came off it. I think he must have come off at the same time as Longstaff. I think was probably the worst in the midfield, to be honest, today. And I do love Tanaka. Honestly, could go as low as a 4, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say a 4.5. I think if I'm going Ampadu 5, we're going Longstaff 5. I've got to put Tanaka down 1. Just never really got into it. I think Belieber on his side of the pitch absolutely won that battle hands down today, to be honest. And that's not to have a go at Tanaka because Belieber is a good player. But yeah, it was a bad one for Tanaka today.
I'm just going to give him a 5 for effort.
Oh, the effort was there. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not questioning that.
that's what I want to see more than anything. Yeah, the effort's always there from Tanaka, but I think like you touched on earlier, Tanaka and Stack just need to get up to this Premier League speed. I don't think they're at the speed of the Premier League yet, the pace of the game. So let's go on to Okafor then, because
Yeah, I thought our best player on the day, and that's not really saying much, but he was, and he did lose the ball in bad areas at times, one of which led to a big chance for Danny Well. a decent chance of Danny Welbeck before half time. I'd say a 6, possibly go to a 6.5, but I think on the basis of the whole performance, I'd go a 6. I think you can clearly see he's the spark of this team in terms of from a creative point of view. I've always been a fan of his signing. Maybe there wasn't much enthusiasm for him, and of course he had that good game against us for Milan in the pre-season. But I've always thought, in terms of his profile, in terms of the raw talent he's got, I think he can fit in this Leeds team pretty well. And I think, to be fair, Parker has maximised Okafor's influence on games very well. I think he has profiled them well. He's allowed him a bit of a free roll on that left hand side, where sometimes you can see him play on the touchline, sometimes you see him cut inside as more of a second striker for Calvert-Lewin, and I think that's the best you can get from Okafor. At Milan, he didn't have that. Obviously he had different players in different positions. He didn't really have that free role because Milan had a lot of quality around him. But yeah, I think 6 out of 10 today. I think he did at times have the beating of his fullback. A couple of nice moments. Again, you want to see a bit more from Okafor, but there's no doubt about it. The difference in quality of this Leeds, the difference in threat from this Leeds team of Okafor without him, you saw it at Burnley, in terms of the difference. I personally think at Burnley, if Okafor had been on that pitch, I think it's a lot more likely that game finishes a 1-1 rather than a 2-0. I think we caused problems in the spells we have in that game. It is a worry how reliant we are on Okafor because Okafor is not a consistent player yet. I think he can become a consistent player.
Yeah.
And if he does, I think he probably might be one that maybe struggles to keep over the next couple of years. But he is the bright spark of this team. He's the player that gets you off your seat and the player that, at the end of the day, as much as we talk about Longstaff, as much as we talk about Joe Rose on them, they are really important players for this Leeds team. It's the Okafors that keep you in the league. Ultimately, it is ultimately the creative players or the goal scorers who keep you in the league. They are the ones who you need to step up at times. And Okafor, to be fair, you can't criticise him today. You can't really do much more with what he had today. The service into him wasn't good enough. The runs around him weren't good enough. It was a tough one for him, but I still think he was the best player on the pitch for us today.
Oh yeah, by far, and I think that, like we've touched on a few times, that without him, we're not the same team. And
it's scary how if we had not made that signing, how few points would be on is quite scary, to be fair.
Well, it's scary the drop off, isn't it, when he's not playing? Because, like you said against Burnley, I think if Okafor was playing, I think we have a much. We're talking about a different game altogether.
Yeah,
but I still don't think he is. I think Farke's been forced to play him because he is the creative spark. He is the only outlet we've got that can do something. But I don't think he's 100% fit. And I think if this was a team that, like in the Championship, where we are strong in every department and you can bring anyone on that can do a job and you're not losing much quality, I think that if that was the case in this league, Okafor wouldn't be playing yet. I think Okafor would be waited until he's up to full fitness, and I think we're pushing more minutes out of him than what he can actually do. If you notice today, like before he came off, he was getting the ball, and then he started not doing certain things that he'd normally do.
Yeah, there's a bit more reluctance.
If you pass it back, he was like, instead of turning and running, because there were instances where I was thinking, like, why are you not going for it? And he normally would. And I think that's his fitness is still not there. But I think Farke's been forced to drag those minutes out of him because without him, there's a massive drop off and nothing. So I'm gonna go very generous and give him a 7 because I think he was a bright spark out of the team.
To be fair, if on the basis of your ratings, that is fair enough. But I would struggle to go higher than a 6.5 for anyone today, or a 6.
Yeah.
But I understand, so he was better, notably better than the other players for us on the pitch today.
Well, let's go on. This one will be interesting. Then let's go on to Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wouldn't say I'm a Mike level of Brendan Aronson fanatic. He won't be happy. He will not be happy listening to this back when I say that. But I have actually liked Aronson this season. I don't think Aronson is, if everyone's fit, and when I say fit, I mean fit to start. Dan James, for me, has had the same issue since April, in terms of you've seen it since pretty much that injury he got in April when he came back early, didn't look right then, came back early again this season, hasn't looked right, and then he's obviously come back again, and hopefully this time we have got it right in terms of Dan James's fitness. When James or Nonto are fit, especially James, I think they start on the right wing. And I don't think Aronson offers you enough all round to play in the midfield three in terms of physicality or quality on the ball. I just don't think he gives you enough. Maybe if you're chasing the game, but certainly not from a start. You can't start a game with Brendan Aronson in midfield. So that is what I would say. However, in terms of this season, Aronson's a limited player. We all know that. When you spend 25 million on the player, he has to be better than just doing the basics kind of thing. But this season, I do think we've managed Aronson pretty well, especially off the ball. I think he does give you quite an important off the ball presence in terms of pressing and actually covering Jayden Bogle. But unfortunately, games like today, Burnley, you need more. You need a lot more from Brendan Aronson, and that is the issue kind of thing. I think what I would say about Brendan Aronson is that he's always going to be quite a low ceiling player, albeit his game against West Ham was probably one of his best for in the Leeds shirt. But that is his maximum. I can't see a Brendan Aronson performance where I'm thinking he's got capable of more than what he did against West Ham. So for me, if you say like Okafor's ceiling's here, I'd say Aronson's ceiling is about there-ish kind of thing. That's not to be disrespectful. I just think he's quite a limited player in terms of his profile. There's a couple of players in the team you could kind of say that about, but Aronson, it kind of stands out quite a bit because he's not very physical either. So the issue with Aronson is he's got quite a low ceiling, but he's also got a very, very low floor as well. In terms of he can easily drop a game like this out of nothing. And he's done it a couple of times this season, even if I do think we've kind of got closer to getting the best out of him. But even then, the best out of him is still probably not good enough for this level. And I feel harsh saying that, but I don't actually, because that is just the reality of this league. If we want to finish above 3 teams this season, we need better. Aronson as a squad player is fine, but yeah, today, in short, it's a 4.5 or a 5. I'd probably say no, it's 4.5. I can't say. I'd say it's probably as bad as Tanaka today. I didn't get a lot of the balls, to be fair. There wasn't a lot of quality service into him. But I'd say 4.5 out of 10. I've got them a little Aronson debate there, but that is just where I stand with Brendan Aronson. I think, in short, he's a low ceiling player. We've got closer this season to getting the maximum out of him, but that maximum is still not going to be good enough individually to keep us in this league. I don't personally believe.
Yeah, I mean, people know that I'm not the biggest Aronson fan, but it's not that I don't like him. It's just as a player, like I said, I think I've mentioned it to you before on a previous podcast that we did. 25 million, I expect more from a player, and what we saw against West Ham was that 25 million pound player. And and I said in last week's that if he played at that level consistently, I've got no problem. He's a great player, but the thing is, the games like today is what he does more consistently, and that's for me the problem. And like you said, I agree fully with it. Is that Dan James is fully fit, Okafor's fully fit, Aronson's not getting in that team. What we need more than anything is to sign another player that's gonna drop him down. The player that we need that they'll make this team a bit more balanced attacking wise is going to drop Aronson further down the pecking order. And he's a good player, I think, to come on in the last 10-15 minutes just to hassle, and keep that ball if we're winning. But yeah, there's a couple of moments in today's game that just showed it for me. And if you think I'm being harsh, go back and watch. There's a part where Bogle's bombing forward, and I thought, we've got a break here. We've got, and Aronson was just stood still and cut that lane off from him. And I thought, he's just going to do like a 1-2. He'll pass it to Aronson, and Bogle will carry on past. But whereas Dan James would be the one running, and Bogle will pass it, onto him. He'll do the run with Bogle. And he just stopped. Bogle passed him the ball. Bogle carried on running. Aronson just stopped and came back with the ball. And I'm like, you just nullified our attack for Brighton. So yeah, I agree. I think I'll probably go 4.5 for him.
I think what I'd say as well is obviously there's a lot of talk about the striker situation in terms of have we got enough goals up front. I still think that's debatable, and I do love Calvert-Lewin. And maybe love's a bit strong, but I do really like Calvert-Lewin. But I'd say our priority at the minute is a right winger.
Yeah.
I think another 1v1 right winger who can take his man on. As much as I love Dan James, he's not great 1v1. He's great when you have space to drive into and play the ball over the top into. He's a great asset to have, but I still think to cover for Okafor's injury problems, to cover for maybe Okafor's fitness issues, I think he needs to give Okafor a bit of help in terms of not being the only player to carry the team. I think if you have another right winger who can do the same things as Okafor, you can have something close to what Brighton have in terms of numerous different threats. Because with that as well, if you've got a winger on one side who can take his man on and drag two players across, you then create space for the other winger who can
Yeah.
then drag two players out. And then you can get Stack more involved. In terms of, I think a lot of the thing with Stack, for example, in terms of his consistency, is he has no space to play into, kind of thing.
Yeah.
In Germany, for example, in the Bundesliga, he had a very different role. He was a bit more defensive in the Bundesliga, a bit more of a Declan Rice, i.e., getting that Declan Rice sort of nickname. And B, in the Bundesliga, there's a lot more space between the lines as well. It's a lot more of an attacking league in general. In the Premier League, and listen, Stack's got to do certain things better, but with players like that, Stack, Longstaff, Calvert-Lewin himself, yeah, extra space you generate just from having players that can take two or three players out of the game, like Somerville and Rutter, 2 years ago. It gets the best out of the players around them as well. So yeah, I'd say right winger is our priority at this moment in time because if Dan James is going to continue to have issues with fitness, you've got to look at that. And then all of a sudden you've got James off the bench, you've got Aronson off the bench to see out the game. That's quite a good situation to be in. I think Aronson seeing out games, I've got no issue with that at all. I personally think he does it a lot better than what Jack Harrison was, for example.
Yeah. Jack Aronson doesn't really offer much apart from a defensive point of view, and I don't think.
Yeah, but I think personally think Aronson's better at that than what Harrison is.
Yeah. I want to say he doesn't. He's not a game changer, is he? And that's what we need. We need a game changer. Let's be honest.
Totally.
I mean that brings you. You mentioned Calvert-Lewin, so that brings us on nicely to Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, I think it's Calvert-Lewin's worst game for us today. I think he's not had a great run, to be fair, since his international break. I'd say 5. I'd say 5 out of 10. Struggled against Van Hecker. I thought Van Hecker had the better of Calvert-Lewin today. Yeah, I'd say it's probably was his worst game in Alicia. And in general, he's kind of been a 7, 8 out of 10 every week, really, for us so far.
Yeah.
He scored 1 goal, and I think it sounds crazy to say that. And I still think, in terms of what he gives us, in terms of presence, and I would still like to bring in another striker as well, I will add. I think Calvert-Lewin, in terms of what he offers from the start of the game, is very good. But today, it just didn't happen for him. And we wasted Calvert-Lewin, I thought, today. We didn't get the ball long to him, just give him something to work with. We just didn't do that today. We kept trying to play it into his feet. Tough one for Calvert-Lewin today, 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I probably agree with you on that. Giving him a 5 out of 10. I think he struggled a lot today. For me, it was just, he weren't winning as much. I mean, I haven't looked at the statistics for it, which Mike normally does, and to tell me how many duels players have won and what have you. But with the eye
He's
test,
got them Glenn Harrison stats ready. I'm telling you now.
Yeah,
That's what he say this. He's getting them stats ready. Possessions won, expected threat. Yeah, what's the one that? Yeah, I feel disrespectful saying this, but what's the one Harrison leads the whole league in again? I can't remember what that was.
the chances created.
Yeah,
apparently.
I'm not being funny. I'm not being funny.
I said this 24 chances created, big chances. I'm like, but it's I think the excuse was we've not put them away, so they don't count as chances. And I'm like, right, it made me think I've got to go back and try and find 24 chances that he's directly created. He might have crossed the ball that's hit a defender that didn't go to a player, or he might have crossed the ball that's, that Calvert-Lewin's tried to get on the end of.
His class is the same as dribbling past 4 players and laying it on a plate for the striker from 2 yards out. That's the issue with strats like that. And for me, if Brendan Harrison was that creative as what the stats would suggest, he'd be USA.
This is my gripe with it as well, mate. It's like he might have crossed the ball. He might have had the final pass to Calvert-Lewin or whoever to put the ball in the net, and they failed to do that. But has he created the chance, or has someone else created the opportunity?
Yeah, or is it a chance in the first place? Is what I'm saying. It's supposed to take a shot from 30 yards out, especially how we shoot from distance.
Yeah,
if it's a chance in the first place.
Yeah, that's my issue with it. He's not created anything. Like, for me, a creative players like Okafor, or like, for example, like Rutter today, he took 2 plays out of the game and then ran to the byline, pulled it back. He created that chance from nothing. That's, for me, a created. You created a chance. Aronson, to me, doesn't do any of that. I think he just cross the ball when the ball comes to him, or he'll lay it off, in the box. But he's not created the chance. He's just been the last person that's touched it. So,
Yeah, I'd agree. And that's the issue. And it feels like I'm being disrespectful to Aronson. I personally think Aronson's been good this season in terms of
yeah.
within his usual levels, but he's not a creative player. It's just not what he is.
I think people
Like
should
saying,
stop.
for example, Ampadu's a creative player. That isn't Ampadu's strength.
No,
And it feels disrespectful saying that, but
it is. It does feel
you can't have
disrespectful
that stat at all.
when you're pulling it down. It does feel disrespectful, but I think that people shouldn't put these stats up, putting him on a pedestal for people to argue,
Exactly.
to
Games
argue
like
against it.
today, he gets more criticism because of it. I respect, to be fair, if you're top of any stat in the Premier League, if you're doing a decent job,
Yeah.
but let's not. I don't think it's useful, to be honest, at this moment
No,
in time.
I don't, because like games like last week, he got what he got his due. He played really well. Like it was probably his best game in a Leeds shirt, and that's saying something. I think it was a standout performer last game. He's got you've got to do that consistently, and then you've got credit in the bank.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
he does work hard, but don't put things like that he's the best at this, because it's like kind of false that statistics just skew things when it's not a reality.
Nowhere near as arrogant, but say, for example, Jed Spence putting that Instagram post out saying, I'll pocket every winger in the Premier League, or something like that, he said. Bring your best winger or something. It was something like that he said. That's like the third game of the season, and it's just I just don't find that kind of stuff helpful. You have to be a very very good player to back that up. You've got to be like top player to back that up, kind of thing. I'm talking like Rafinha at Leeds level. You would kind of level I think you've got to be to like sort of have that kind of hype kind of thing. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, he's a top bloke as well as Aronson.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I think Arison's a very useful squad player to have this season if utilised correctly. I personally think Barker has utilised Arison very well this season in terms of his quality
Yeah,
level, but ultimately that's the thing. To save a couple of players, if the ceiling's not good enough, you've got to add another player to it. I've said since August anyway, right wingers as important as the left winger. Back where, for example, I really wanted to sign, but if you think about it, if you have Backer on one wing and Okafor on the other, we're a different team.
yeah, yeah,
It's like Snodgrass and Grado, for example. It's just a
yeah.
different team. You go up
It is.
another level, kind of
Yeah,
thing. It's like when we had Rafinha and we didn't have the same level of threat on the left hand side. Like if you have Rafinha and Okafor, for example, back then we're a different team in that kind of sense.
the thing about Rafinha though is he was just 2 levels
Oh,
above
yeah, I'm not
everyone else.
expecting it. I don't expect Okafor. That's why I'm like, with Okafor, I do think he's been a little bit underrated because, the expectation is when you bring a big signing
Yeah,
in out wide, they're going to be Rafinha,
yeah,
but no one's going to be Rafinha if we're being realistic. But Okafor, relative to the other wingers, I
yeah,
think has
yeah,
been
yeah.
really good so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy with another Okafor on the other side,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
someone
That's
with
all we need.
visibility.
All we
It
need
is
on
for
that
it
left,
is for this
on that right
season.
hand side.
It is for this season or next season, isn't it?
If you
It's just
bring in for me in January, it's a right winger, probably where the most of the budget goes towards. In terms of another Okafor. It doesn't have to be a big money signing. Okafor was only 15 mil, and a
yeah,
second striker, just someone who can come off the bench or start instead of Calvert Lewin. That is the two areas. I think the rest of it. Then you look at the back four, fine with that. Midfield, I'm fine with that. I just think you add those two signings to this team, maybe a bit of depth in other areas, but I'd say that's probably good enough. And I actually think Paris will has shown me enough in terms of shot stopping to say that at this moment in time, I back Paris. But listen, if Paris has a bit of a nightmare, then maybe you can look at the goalkeeper situation as well. But for me, those two are the priorities in terms of another alternative to Calvert Lewin and a right winger. I'd say that is our priority in January.
yeah,
Goals,
yeah,
mate. Goals is what we
yeah.
need in this team.
We need some.
Goals.
We need proper creativity, not this pretend creativity that
Yeah, I
people are
mean,
saying.
this. I don't want to be because Sean Longstaff, I think, was third in that list as well, and I think Sean Longstaff. I said about Rodon arguably being our best player. I think Longstaff actually has been our best player so far this season. He's been an excellent signing. But
Yeah, but
again,
technically,
the
Oscar,
set pieces with Sean
set
Longstaff.
pieces
That's why he's up there.
is a corner creative.
Well, it
That,
is in a sense, but
but is it
in open
creative? Like,
play, I don't want us to pass the ball to Sean Longstaff and try and break a team down with Sean Longstaff in that
yeah.
kind of situation. But in set pieces, it's similar with Declan Rice, for example, in terms of set pieces are clearly where his creativity comes from, not so much in open play. And it's like, again, like we said with Paris, he can be excellent in terms of playing the ball long, but it's very different to playing the ball short. In terms of being an excellent set piece taker, it's very different to trying to play a defence splitting pass through 3 or 4 players. It's
Well,
totally
this is
different.
this is what I'm getting at. I mean, I'm going to go on a rant now.
We're on a rant about stats, aren't we? If
Yeah,
Mike was
yeah,
on this, if Mike was
because
on this stream now, he'd disconnect. I'm telling you
yeah,
now.
because well, that's the thing. I mean, Longstaff, as good as what he is, like, so you take a corner, and he's got a few assists from corners this season. So you take a corner. Is it creative? I mean, you're putting the ball in the box. You're not putting it. You're not directly like
It's
you're
very
putting the
different
ball.
to open play.
You're
Yeah.
putting a ball into an area. You're not like you're just putting it into an area, hoping someone gets on the end of it. You're not like going right. I can zone in onto this person's head, and I'm going to put it on his head. You're not creating anything apart from you creating an opportunity for someone else to make something of it, and
Well,
that's
someone
where I
does.
think
To be fair, though, just to defend Longstaff a little bit, because our set pieces before this season have
yeah.
been consistently
Oh yeah, I'm not.
terrible.
I'm not pulling Longstaff down. What I'm talking about is the stat. Is it
Yeah, it's totally,
is
yeah,
it a
it's totally
creative
misleading.
chance? It's as good as what Longstaff's done. Has he created that? Well, he has created the opportunity, but out of a set piece where he's got a free hit, he's taking a corner or a free kick, and he's putting it into the box.
Well, it's like, say, Declan Rice has got like
Yeah,
6 or 7 assists this season. I don't
yeah.
think Declan Rice is in the top 10 most creative midfielders in the league, never mind the most. It's
Well, you
just,
talk to me about a creative midfielder. I'm thinking Messi. I'm thinking Ronaldinho.
yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking someone that just sparks something out of nothing.
I don't think there's many creative players in the league in terms of in midfield. I think there's been a massive, since the De Bruyne's of this league have gone. I don't actually think there's that many. I think it works quite well for the teams that are trying to stay up. For example, ourselves, because there's a bit less of that. Don't look at many midfields and think he could absolutely rip us to pieces today. I think it's more of a case of he could pass, run rings around us in terms of passing, but I don't think he's going to, you know, drop like a goal and assist on us in this game kind of thing. I don't think there's a lot of that in the Premier League anymore.
I don't think there's
I
any in
think,
the world. There's not much in the
yeah,
world
I just
anymore.
think in the game, I think there's a lot less number 10s. Most teams are 4-3-3 these days. Feels like I'm having a good old Neil Warnock style rant about modern football, but I just think it's the way it's gone. I think the creativity comes from the wingers now, or your set pieces, or your false nines and things
Yeah.
like that. It's
I think I
one
think
of
talking
them.
about I think talking about stats has got us a bit.
Rattled,
It
rattled.
took us
But
off topic because I think
it did need saying. It says there needs to be context to these things.
yeah, so I think statistics skew our games actually looked or played because players you can have a player that's got really good like the stats look really good, but when you watch them play, it's not the same. It doesn't match up if that makes sense.
No, it's totally
So
fair. It's totally fair.
I was just looking because the substitutions. I
To
mean,
be fair, I've not got much to say on the subs. I think it's going to be a pretty flat rate across the subs, really. But who do you want to start with, mate? Who came? So I think Stack came on first, didn't he? Just looking at the
Stack and
order of the
James they
subs.
came on together. Stack
Oh
and
yeah.
James.
So who do you want to go with first, mate?
Or just do whichever order you want.
Do you want to do Stack first?
Yeah, yeah,
So I think 5. I
yeah.
mean, to be fair, he did almost score, didn't he? Like on,
I
it's
think
quite
I
a
think
nice
it's,
little
yeah.
solo move.
I think out of all the substitutions, I think he was probably one of the standout ones out of them all.
Maybe 5.5 then.
Yeah, I think he was one that tried to get something going. Yeah, so James, I'll agree with you on Stack.
James, I think 5. I just don't think really got into it. I think
He
you can
didn't really
see.
get into the game, did he?
No, I still don't think he's fit. But the
No.
ultimate is, I still think we might have rushed him back, and I can see why we're doing it. But I would much rather have a fully fit Dan James, even if it's just for half a season, than just what we're doing at this moment in time. It just isn't working what we're doing. He's had the same issue since April for me. He
Yeah,
hasn't looked right since April, even in pre-season. It's not Dan James. The sprinting's not there. The energy's not there. It's
no,
tough to
no.
watch, to be honest, at this
Yeah.
moment in time with Dan James. And it's nothing against Dan James as a player, 'cause he was superb for us last season. he was arguably the best player in the Championship last season. He was outstanding for us, but he's not fit. That's the issue. And at this level, as much as 95% fit and 100% fit might sound like minimal difference, at this level, you get found out if you're 99% fit.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that is a big issue for me with Dan James. We've got to manage that situation better because he's notably better than every other winger we've got other than No Okafor
I
at
agree.
this
I
moment in
agree
time.
with you on that because I
And
think
to be fair, if you get James, Calvert-Lewin, and Okafor on the pitch, I think that balances itself out well. Whether you can get them on the pitch very often is a different question. But yeah, if you've got Calvert-Lewin winning flick-ons or supplying the ammunition to James on the running in behind, Okafor a bit more balls of feet,
mm,
trying to make things happen. And, if Okafor's taking 2 or 3 players away, he's creating that space for Dan James, and Dan James's space to run into is going to cause a lot of problems at this level.
yeah, and
We need Dan James, and we can't carry on like this with Dan James. Either if he needs surgery, he needs surgery for me. If it's that big a situation, it just feels like the same injury has reoccurred sort of 3 or 4 times now since April.
yeah, it needs. You can tell he's not fully fit because a fully fit Dan James starts. Farker's he's Farker's number one on that
Yeah,
side, and
he is on
and
the right wing, no question.
if he's on the subs bench, you know that he's not 100% fit. So
And I think Bogle with Dan James in front of him, it massively goes up another level. Not that Bogle's not been good this season, but I think that Bogle James partnership was by far better than anything in the league last season. It was what got us promoted, really. That partnership in the second half of the season.
next on the pitch was Metcher. He came on for
Metcher,
Calvert-Lewin.
5. I don't think he did much wrong.
Yeah,
I actually like Metcher, to be fair. I think he's probably our most direct Calvert-Lewin replacement. Probably a bit more technical than Calvert-Lewin, I'd say. Less physical in terms of aerial duels, but can hold the ball up well. But in terms of ultimate goal threat, I'm not sure Metcher's quite there. I actually think Metcher made that horrible word that in modern football, 4-4-2. I don't see any reason why Metcher can't play off Calvert-Lewin. I don't see any reason for that. But I think with Metcher as well, if Calvert-Lewin did get injured, we would have a bit of an issue because I think,
yeah,
yeah,
he's not a natural finisher, is he?
that's what
Like
I mean.
he had an opportunity today, which were
But I do
kind of.
like him. I think he's a very good, useful squad player to have because I think he can play a little bit deeper if you need him to. I think he can even play out wide if you need him to.
Well, I spoke to Mike about this with Mitchell, and I said that I see him as. I think he'd be good as a like playing off the like the striker as a second striker, or as a,
Yeah,
like he could. I think he could actually play in that number 10 role 'cause in the Bundesliga. He played quite deep, and he's good. He's good at running into it.
Metcher playing just off Calvert-Lewin or just off another
Yeah,
strikers.
because
I
I
still
think
think we need another striker, but you can still use Calvert-Lewin, Metcher, and another striker. I still believe that.
yeah, I think Metcher is better at that deeper role rather than a main striker. I don't think
It's
he's
similar
a.
to. I don't think he's as good as Rutter, but it's similar with Rutter in terms of starting off as a striker. But I just think Metcher, in terms of his build as well, I think it's more suited to being sort of a second striker or a number 10.
Yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I do think he can be useful in that role, but I think what we're doing at this moment in time in terms of Metcher coming on for Calvert Lewin, I don't think it's helping anyone, really. I just don't think that's works. And it should work on paper better than what it is, but I think it's got to be Metcher and Calvert Lewin, not
yeah.
Metcher for Calvert Lewin. So if we're chasing a game, personally, I'd take one of the midfielders off, or even just go to a 4-4-2 and take one of the wingers off. A bit of a narrow 4-4-2. I just think it's better than what we're trying to do. I think we're trying to keep the system in place, the 4-3-3. I'm not sure. I'm never a fan of just trying to play to one system. I think you've got to have different variety, and Metch the type of player who can give you a bit of variety off the bench.
Yeah, and then I think we've got Justin and Aronson that came on. I mean,
Yeah, very minimal minutes we're talking, aren't we? Harrison, what does he get? 13 minutes each. If we're going to rate them at all, I'd say a 5.
Yeah,
Really.
just a 5.
Yeah,
I'll go with a 5. So overall, I think need big improvements for Forest.
we do, mate. Another good all away game against Sean Dyche's Nottingham Forest with Gibbs White. A lot of threat there, Backware, Hudson Odoi, Elliot Anderson, I think has been probably the best midfielder in the league this season on form. That's going to be a tough game because I think Forest will definitely come good this season. I think they're the team I look at in that. For me, I look at the current situation. I think your bottom 4 or 5 is looking a bit clear now in terms of probably is going to be ourselves. West Ham and Wolves are almost certainties at this moment in time. Burnley, you've got to be pretty sure about. Maybe a Brentford or a Fulham you can throw into there as well. It feels like that. I think eventually you're going to see the league split into three. Big six, supposed big six. Then you have a sort of mid-table, sort of 10, 12 mid-tables, and then sort of a 4, 5, or 6 at the bottom. And I still think this Leeds team can stay up. I still think we're more than capable of finishing above West Ham and Wolves based on what we've seen this season. Of course, both could improve. We can't just rely on them being this bad all season. Forest, I do not see Forest going down with Sean Dyche and the level of quality they've got. Of course, they've got to play a lot of football as well. In fact, they're playing Europa League, aren't they, before they play us? So maybe have to rotate a little bit.
I think that's the bit of an advantage that we might have. That's a bit of
poor Forest. Will they have to play people like James McAtee and Callum Owendo? I mean, that's awful. I mean, players that would probably start for us.
I think that's the thing with Forest is they've got the players, aren't they? They'll be fine. I think come the end of the season.
I'd say mid-table. I think they will probably just put a run together at some point under Dyche, and it won't be especially pretty, but they will probably stay up.
I think as long as we can keep that 6-7 point gap between us and the relegation zone, I think if we can keep that by January and then strengthen a little bit,
buzzing.
But we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine as well. So
I'd be buzzing if we finish that Newcastle game on the 7th of January and we're still out of the relegation zone. I think that'd be a good sign, because then after that it becomes a lot more. There's a lot more games in play then where you kind of think there's still games in this next couple of 2 months or so that we can win. And we should be able to win at least 1 or 2 of these games.
I think I've maintained. I think we'll pull a result out of the app that we don't expect.
Yeah, we will. So it's the nature, especially at home.
It's the nature of football. It's the nature of football.
At home, I can see us doing something there. I don't think we'll embarrass ourselves at home at all. It's just away from home. I think at this moment in time we are struggling to impose ourselves on games. What I would say about this Leeds team is we had the opportunity to beat Wolves, we took it. We had the opportunity to beat West Ham, we took it. And teams around us, we beat Everton. We took advantage of the fact that they had quite a depleted side at that point. It was quite early in the season. The one we did let get away from us was Burnley. That is one that I fear we look back on at the end of the season and think, that was a really, really bad result at the time, kind of thing. But if we don't finish with Burnley this season, then you can't have any complaints.
They looked really poor, didn't they? Even though they won, they looked really poor.
They're just, in terms of quality level, it feels like being disrespectful here. I think, in terms of, to be fair to Parker, I think he's getting the maximum out of them. They competed against Arsenal today.
Yeah, but again, at home form, their home form is fantastic.
But I think you look at it, they probably are playing at their absolute 100% and just about out of the relegation zone, but we should still be looking to finish up Burnley. There's no question about that. And there's opportunities for this Leeds team to stay up, so I'm not panicking at all. If you offer me this position in terms of how far ahead of the teams in the relegation zone we are at this moment in time, I definitely took it, to be honest. I definitely took that. It's just these next 2 months has the potential to be pretty ugly if we don't get to grips away from home. But I'd like to think that what I'd say about this season is we haven't followed up a poor performance with a second poor performance. We have tended to respond pretty well. Against Arsenal, we responded well against Newcastle. Against Burnley, we responded well against West Ham. To be fair to us, we have bounced back. We haven't tended to dwell on things too much. So I'd like to think we'll do that against Forest, but we have probably got to change 1 or 2 things. We know what Forest will do. We know exactly what they'll do with sit in, counter attack. So we've got to be able to. We'll have a lot of the ball against Forest, and it's about what we do with it.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
On that note, then, before we wrap it up, let's have a score prediction.
But for Forest, you can tell this is not going to be a very honest one, this now. But I don't think there'll be more than a goal in it either way. I think it's got a classic sort of 1-0, 2-1 written all over it. I'd say 1-1.
1-1.
I'd say a generous 1-1. I think we'll compete, definitely, but have a lot of the ball, but 1-1, I'd say.
That's fair enough. I'll take a point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A point would be an excellent result. Just something that just gives us something going into the international break would be pretty lovely.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up there then, folks. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next week.